Hi, I'm Georgia. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here and to be sober. And thank you for not running away like Tommy's host. Tommy's host just said, "Here's Tommy." No offense, but it was kind of cute. The talks have been amazing this weekend. I feel absolutely, I'm just overwhelmed. I'm all prayed up, so we're just going to do this thing. It was funny on the way here. I'll back up. I want to thank my fellow Trenton for coming with me. We came in a couple days early to go visit his family in Kentucky and got a rental car and did the road trip and everything. And then Ben called me and said, "Hey, would you mind switching the steps you're going to do?" And I said, "Absolutely, no problem." And then I went into terror. And so on the way here, I was, like, oh my God, I wish I was dead. I wish Ben was dead. How can I get out of this? And so I suggested to Trenton that maybe we listen to some AA talks. And he's like, absolutely, I think we should, And so we put on Bob, who I love and adore, and I'm going to try not to gush over too much. But he opened his talk by saying exactly how I felt. I'm looking at this line of speakers thinking, I don't belong in this line of speakers. And it soothed me. And so thank you to Lee for recording these. And I'm so grateful that we have that at our access all the time. I also, without picking out names or anything, I fangirl over KDP. And so I was really excited. We spoke together years ago, but there's no way she's going to remember me. So I came through the thank you line trying not to fangirl. So I'm like, "Thank you. You gave a really wonderful talk." And she goes, "Oh, where are you from?" And she picks up my name tag and she goes, "Oh, Georgia, I know you. It's so good to see you." And I was like, "Oh my God, I love you so much." Progress, not perfection, you guys. Joe and I have been friends for a long, long time. His best friend was a fellow named Mike, and Mike and I were together. Mike had Lou Gehrig's disease, and we fell in love when I was 5 or 6 years sober, and I was able to spend the last few months of Mike's life with him, and that's where I got to get to know Joe, and we've been really great friends ever since. And he teases me unmercifully, and he has a lot coming. You have so much coming, you don't even know. All right. My sobriety date is February 1st, 1993. I got sober when I was 24, and I was pretty sure my life was over. But it was just the opposite. My life was just beginning. And I have this big, beautiful life really as a result of doing things I don't want to do every day, all day. Because really what I want to do is lay in bed and watch reruns of Law and Order and Sex and the City and Bosch. But what I do instead is part of my third step practice is when I'm asked to do really anything, I look at my calendar. If my calendar's open, I say yes. And I trust that that's God keeping my calendar. And not just in AA. If my calendar's open, I say yes. And my sponsor is Marilyn S., and her theme really is, just say yes to the universe. And as a result of saying yes to the universe, I've had this amazing life. But had you told me when I got sober everything I'd have to go through sober, I would have said, no, thank you very much. I'd like another drink, please. But I've been given just what I need, just when I need it, and sometimes not a second before. And I came here with so much wreckage. Charlie Carney always talks about, or used to talk about, we go through our drinking life like driving a big station wagon, and we're throwing all our regrets, our remorse, all that baggage just in the back of the station wagon. I'll deal with that later. And then when you get sober, it's as if you throw on the brakes, and now it's all right there. So what do you do with all that stuff? And that's what the steps help us sort through. And I don't remember when I had my first drink, but I was arrested for drinking in public when I was 11, which is crazy to me. I felt like a grown-up, though. I felt like I was dealing with grown-up stuff. My dad had died of cancer when I was 6. I was raised by a single mom who worked 3 jobs and was depressed and angry and kind of unavailable when she was home. Obviously, she was pretty tired. I see that now. Back then, I felt like she hated me, and so I started drinking, and I don't think what happened to me as a kid made me an alcoholic. I think it made me thirsty. And because I didn't have any rules, I've never been grounded, never had any rules or structure at all, my alcoholism was able to blossom at a much younger age than some of my other friends. But I drank like a pig from the gate and, went through all the different phases in my drinking and ended up with a little problem with crack cocaine, which helped me get to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm very grateful for that experience now, not so much then. But what I came here with was a broken person with no skills for living. I mean, I don't even know how I survived long enough to get to you guys. And I had so much wreckage and so much pain, and I just couldn't imagine how I could have a different life. But I was shown, not told, how to do it here. I mean, I had sponsors who gave me direction, but really it was your examples, and I still depend on those. Today, there's nothing you can know about me that can hurt me. I don't have any secrets, and that is a kind of freedom I never dreamed that I'd want or that I'd ever have. And I always thought if you knew the truth about me, you wouldn't love me. If you knew those things, so I had to keep those separate. But what that did is it kept me separate from me. It kept me separate from you. And it turns out by telling you those things, I swore I'd never tell another human being. It gets rid of the separateness I feel between me and you. And, I may celebrate your joys, but what really connects me to you is our pain and the embarrassing things that we do, which I'm going to share some of those when I talk about Step 10. But those are the things that connect me, and I've been given a kind of freedom here that I never even dreamed that I could find. And I wasn't raised with any kind of religion, and so the God stuff in the steps really threw me off. I thought this won't work for me because of that. But I had a sponsor who said, "Do you believe that I believe?" And I said yes, because I kind of felt sorry for her. I thought it was sad that people had to... if you have to believe in something outside of this world to make your life tolerable, it's kind of sad. And my mom sort of, in our house, there was sort of an understanding that, you just kind of felt sorry for religious people. And I don't know how I got that belief. And so I thought I thought anything with God was religion. I didn't understand a spiritual program. I didn't understand that. But it was enough that my sponsor said, "Do you believe I believe?" And I said yes. And so she started me on some really simple stuff of praying to a God I didn't believe in, praying to her God. And then, going through the steps with her, and what a blessing that was. So much freedom in those first 9 steps and learning who I am, what I've been equipped with in this life, and what I need to work on. And so now I'm to use all of those experiences and all of that work I did to now live a different way of life. Step 10 is continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. This is not just about making apologies. This is about taking personal responsibility. This is where I learned that I'm only responsible for my side of the street. What you do on yours, none of my business. In fact, the dirtier your side of the street is, the cleaner mine needs to be, and that my energy is to be focused on what kind of person I want to be. And I've learned to do that here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of some 10-step stuff that's come up for me recently, and then we'll see where this goes. Last year, I was going to a conference called Mountain High. It's in Lake Arrowhead. 31 years sober. Just keep that in mind. There wasn't a cloud on the horizon. I was driving through the mountains. I was going to meet a bunch of people up at this conference that I love. My sponsor was going to be there. I was doing the show because I'm a big ham, so anything that we do, my home group is a Pacific group. We do shows for everything. I've done like 40 shows in my sobriety, and we just have fun. And so driving up the mountain, there's traffic, so it takes me up this mountain road. I don't have any cell service, but I still have music, and I'm playing music loud, and the road is windy, and I'm winding. Woo, having the best time, going to have the best weekend. And suddenly there's somebody right on my butt. And so I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I'm starting to feel a little tense. And then, boom, I have a blowout. But I can't pull over because this guy's on my butt, and there's no room to pull over. So I end up just yanking my car over into this rocky area, and it's terrifying. And without even a thought, I do this, and then a little dance as he's driving by. Okay. I just have to tell you that I stopped flipping people off years ago because early in sobriety, I was driving on the freeway and this car was going too slow for my liking. And I pulled by this car and I flipped them off. Like, I don't even know what I'm a nice person. Somehow in my car, I'm like, ah. So I drive by this car and it was this little old couple and and I pulled my car over and I wept. That was the last day I flipped people off until... So I pull over, and he pulls over. I'm in the middle of this mountain road. I have no cell service. I've just gotten a flat tire. He pulls over in front of me, and he rolls down his window really slowly and creepily and waves me over. And I go, no. And so he backed up, did it again. I'm terrified. I've now put myself in a place to really be hurt. And I didn't see this coming. I was doing really well. I have a big, beautiful life today. And yet here we are. So I just put my head down and prayed he'd leave. And it worked. So he drove away. But now I'm stuck there. I don't know how to change a tire. Judge if you will. Like my friend who when I got cell service said, "You don't know how to change your tire?" And I quickly got off the phone with her and called Trenton. But I was there. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to change a tire. I have no cell service. There's no place to walk to from there. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And this car comes by. It's beat up, filthy dirty, filled with stuff. And this guy gets out. And honestly, he looks a little shady, but I mean, so do we. And he says, "Do you need help?" And I said, "Yes." And then I just chanted in my head, "Please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't kill me." And he said, "Do you have a spare?" I don't know. I mean, that's the truth. Sorry. Anyway, so I go, it turns out I have a spare. He puts it on. And I wanted to give him some dignity and not just like hand him money. So I said, "May I buy you dinner?" And he said, "Absolutely not. It's my pleasure. Somebody help me. I'm so happy to be able to help you." And so I was like, "Oh, thank you. How beautiful." And so now I'm driving on the spare. I call my friend who says, "You don't know how to change a tire." So I called Trenton. He says, "Where are you?" I tell him. He has, within minutes, a tire ordered for me. I go to this tire place, get a tire put on. I make it up to Mountain High. Amazing, right? So what a beautiful day. Couldn't believe how well things turned out. So I get to Mountain High, and so this is what happens. I get up there, and it's dorm-style living, and yet there's also condos. My sponsor, who's 52 years sober at this time, 84 years old at that time, and is, Marilyn. She's amazing. They have her in a dorm on an upper bunk. Oh, I don't think so. So I put on my Captain Justice cape, and I come in, and I go to registration. I'm like, I don't understand. This does not make sense to me. We need to make sure that she gets in a room. Can we move her? I'm sorry, there's no other rooms available. And I said, okay, who do I need to talk to? So I talked to the chairman. Okay, so I just make a whole thing of this, right? So they said, there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, this is just a shame. I just don't understand how this could happen. And they said, well, we can tell you who's in her room. And I said, oh, yeah, tell me who's in her room. I'm going to talk to them. They gave her an upper bunk. Are you kidding me? Oh, it's Yuko? Okay, so many of you know Yuko. She is the finest human being. She is so lovely. So I'm like, where's Yuko? So now I cruise through the conference center where I see some of the people who are speaking, and I tell them the story of what they did to Marilyn. I'm on the search for Yuko. Where's Yuko? Have you guys seen Yuko? As I'm looking for Yuko to take care of Yuko, I see Marilyn, and I say, Marilyn, I'm taking care of this. Which she says, ooh, like, no. And she says, it turns out I went to the room and that bottom bunk, that beautiful bottom bunk they saved for me. It's so lovely, and I get to stay with these wonderful women all weekend. It's just perfect. So I'm like, oh. So promptly, I go back to registration. Hi, you may recall I was here a few minutes ago. I'd just like to apologize for my behavior. Then I find the chairman. Then I have to go back to the conference center and I have to go to each of the speakers that I've told the story to. Then I have to find you. I mean, seriously, this is with 31 years sober. Now, the thing about this is learn from this experience, right? But the thing is next time it's not going to be delivered that way. It's going to be delivered in a different way. So that's why I've got to be awake. I've got to be, like, there's warnings. When my character defects are ready to come out, there's warning signs. Like when I'm about to be super self-righteous, the thought that comes is, I would never do that. And then all of a sudden I hear, whoop, 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 close mouth, But that's come from experience. But thank God for these steps, that what I used to do is when I ran into trouble during the day is I would figure out what you did wrong, how I need to tell you how you've hurt me. I need a 7-page apology. And it was always about my emotional sobriety was solely reliant on your actions and your words, your actions. Today, my emotional sobriety is based on my actions. And so today I have tools for that. So when I run into trouble at work, the first thing I do is, go through the 4 columns, who am I upset with? What is it affecting? What did they do? What is it affecting? And then the magic 4th column, like, what can I do differently here? And it's such a different way of living. However, again, these lessons are delivered in such different ways. Now, many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I had a situation with someone at work. I work at the Midnight Mission in Skid Row, which next to getting sober is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I started volunteering there when I first got sober, and I've been an employee there now for the past 15 years. So I've been involved with this place for like 32 years. And I love this place. And this woman came to work there, and I didn't think she respected the Midnight Mission as she should. I didn't think she was honest. I had a lot of opinions about her, and I tried to work around her, but she was impacting my daily life. So I tried speaking to her directly. I tried speaking to my boss. I tried speaking to HR. I even started looking for another job because it was months and months and months and months of this. Well, I got on an airplane to go give a spiritual talk in Arkansas. And as they were getting the last of the passengers on, I took out my cell phone and started going through some email because I didn't want to get behind on email. And there was one from her with some suggestions of how I could do my job better. So I responded to my coworker, and I said, I am sick to death of these emails from her. I am sick to death of her not doing her job. Maybe if she did her job, we would have gotten raises this year. And then I press send, and as it's going, I see it's going to her. There's nothing I can do. It is gone. And the flight attendant's like, please turn off your phone, ma'am. And I'm like, no. Now, what I forgot to mention is that of all the years I'd been there, I just got a new boss. I'd already proven myself, but no, I have a new boss. He's only been there 2 months. I had done all these inventories on this person, constantly looking for what my fourth column was here. I could never figure it out. Like, if you spot it, you got it. How am I like her? I asked people, how am I like her? Am I like her? Oh my God, what can I do? What can I do differently? Talk to my sponsor about it. I could not see what my role was here until that email started going through, and it was if a magic mirror just came up and I saw who I was, I saw what I was, I saw what I'd been doing, I saw how I'd been I had months of all this work that I could not see until I sent that email. So I quickly go and I send an email, even though the flight attendant's very upset with me right now, and I say to her, please forgive me. There's no excuse for the email I just sent you. If you want to meet with HR and our new boss on Monday, I'm happy to do that. And then I sat on a flight for hours. So I land. First thing I do, I call Marilyn and I tell her what happens. And she goes, Please don't send any more emails. When are you speaking? I said, in 2 hours. She said, when you share tonight, let everyone know what you did today. And so I did. And there were so many kind people who offered me jobs as they came through the thank you line. But what ended up happening, Keith Carpenter used to talk about the seemingly bad, the seemingly good and the seemingly bad. And this is definitely a seemingly bad. Like, this is bad. But because now everything had been blown open, it opened up the space for me to come back incredibly humble and genuinely apologize to this woman for my actions, my behaviors. And the last year she was there, we actually had a pretty decent relationship because everything was out on the table. Now, did I ever really love her or want to, believe in her business practices? No, but I didn't have to anymore. And I don't know why I had to before the magic mirror, but I think it's so much about progress and not perfection. And, in step 10, it talks about not resting on our laurels and that we have to stay really current with all this stuff. So after I went through my first set of steps, brand new, I'm like, okay, now I've done everything. Now it's going to be perfect moving forward. So anytime I had any kind of upset feeling at all, I'd write a 4-column inventory. I was stopping at payphones calling Marilyn. I didn't want to drink. I'm like, oh my God, I'm angry, and I'd read this. So I was super current until I hit about 6 years sober. I got married, divorced. I had a back surgery. There were complications. I was bedridden for about a year. I ended up falling in love with a man who had Lou Gehrig's disease. He died. I had chronic health issues. I went through this really difficult period, and during that time, I wasn't working such a diligent program. And what happened was I slowly, very slowly, didn't even see it happening, slipped into a kind of darkness that was even worse than when I was drinking. It was worse. It was worse than, I had 3 suicide attempts before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. But now I was sober, and I was single for a while after Mike died, and then I ended up marrying a man I shouldn't have been on a second date with. Now, this was not his fault. He absolutely said, this is who I am. And I said, no, you're not. You're this man. And I'm going to show you how. And I cried after our first date. It was not good. And so I'm now in this marriage. My mother had such a difficult, painful life, which I didn't find out about until I was about 7 years sober. But my relationship with her had grown through the process of just simply changing my actions and tending to my side of the street. And during that time, she got sick and died. So, it was like all these things happened in this short period of time. And without seeing it, I had led up on this program of action. I still had a sponsor. I still went to my home group, but I had a lot of physical issues. I was suffering with chronic pain, and we're not supposed to say our case is different, but I just want to say if you suffer with chronic pain, our case is different. And but for me, what that means is I have to do twice as much to feel half as good, but what I had done is I had begun to do half as much. And would nurse my pain and talk about my pain. If you called me and asked me how I was, we'd talk about my pain. I Googled my pain. I thought about my pain. I nursed my pain. I held it to my bosom. I'm like, pain, pain, pain. It's all I thought about. I stayed in bed. My world got really, really small. And Marilyn used to say things like, when you stay home, are you in pain? And I would say, mm-hmm. And she would say, then why not come to a meeting and be in pain? And I would be like, you are the meanest human being I've ever met. Like she doesn't understand. And I thought that she was saying it was in my head, that it wasn't real. So my world got smaller and smaller. And this happened over a period of time. And I got to that point, that darkness, where I thought, this is how I've always felt. This is how I'm always going to feel. Nothing has changed. And more years went on. And I didn't realize it was years. It wasn't weeks. It wasn't months. It was years that I slowly dug myself into a hole of such despair that my life was unrecognizable for this beautiful gift I'd been given in sobriety and all of these amazing experiences I had had up until that point. My world now was barely getting by each day. And I remember where I was. I had everything on the outside that I thought I always wanted. I lived in a beautiful house. I call it the lonely mansion with a tear in every room. My husband was a builder. And so we lived everything was tricked out, heated floors, and I had an espresso maker in my walk-in closet. It was like all the stuff. I had a beautiful car parked outside. I had money in the bank. I had everything on the outside that I thought I had always wanted, all those things that would make me happy. And I had never been more miserable. And I remember exactly where I was standing on the second floor of this beautiful house, looking out this beautiful window. And I realized it hadn't been months, it had been years that I'd been feeling this way. And oh my God, and I'd been waiting to feel different, to take different actions. But I had learned all along, it's our actions that lead our feelings. But for some reason, I had forgotten that it happens slowly. It's cunning, baffling, and powerful. And so I thought, my God, I can't drink. That's not an option. And I thought, and I can't kill myself, because I had thought about that too. I thought, I cannot go on anymore. This is how it's always been. This is how it's always going to be. I believe if you kill yourself, you have to come back and repeat all the lessons of this life. And I was like halfway done. And I'm like, there's no way I'm repeating these lessons. So this last part of my life started with this thought. How do I best want to spend the rest of my wretched time on this hideous planet? Maybe I'll never be happy again, but maybe I can be useful. And it seems like I'd always been trying to get happy. If I have the finances, if I have the relationship, if I have whatever, then I'll be happy. But then I get that thing, and happiness is still the same distance away. I'm like, okay, maybe if I have that, but it's still this, I can never get to happy. And so it was this idea that I may never be happy again, but how do I best want to spend the rest of my wretched time on this hideous planet? And so I thought, crazy idea, maybe I'd go through the steps again with my sponsor, even though I was absolutely convinced that this was not a problem of Alcoholics Anonymous. This was another problem. But because I'm an alcoholic, all of the solutions to my problems are the same. It's what we do here, going to meetings, working with a sponsor, praying, meditating, all those things we do. That is what I am to do every day for every problem. When I'm doing these things, friendship problems seem to resolve, relationship problems seem to resolve, finance problems seem to resolve, health problems maybe not so much, but I'm in a much better place to deal with that. So I started going through the steps again, and I thought, how can I be useful? At that time, I didn't know if I wanted to be a grocery checker or a surgeon. Like, I had no passion for anything. Zero passion. I had a list of things that if I were to get in my car and get out of the house, I had a list of things that I should do while I'm out, like go to the store. I had it written because it was so rare that I would be able to get out of the house and get somewhere, because it had gotten so dark and my world had gotten so small. So I made like a newcomer without picking up a drink. going to a ton of meetings. And I started trying to get busy, trying to figure out what I want to do. And again, Marilyn, just say yes to the universe. And so I had been volunteering at the Midnight Mission throughout my sobriety, and I thought, well, maybe I can just go be useful there. It was the only thing that I felt any passion about. So I'll go volunteer there while I'm looking for a job. And so while I'm looking for a job, well-meaning people come to me with suggestions of jobs that are available. So helpful. And so somebody came to me and said, they're doing the census. They're hiring a bunch of people. Maybe you want to go do that. And I thought, no, I don't. But I thought, I've got to surrender. And I was just praying for knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry it out. What would you have me do? What would you have me be? I am beat. What is it? And so I started working for the census, and I am technically challenged. I'm the one with the VCR with the 12 o'clock always going, I don't even know how to hook. Okay. So start working for the census. Oh, and I have no sense of direction. And I had to read maps. Trenton will laugh about that because he's my scene person. So I start working for the census. I have to learn how to use this little handheld computer and walk door to door and ask invasive questions of people I don't know. And so I'm doing that, just hating my life, going to a meeting that day, doing the thing. Then if I did those things, I could go back to bed. That was the agreement I made with myself. And I would go do that. And then another friend of mine created a product that she sold on eBay, and she had sold 35,000 units and needed somebody to go into eBay and to each person's account and say, great transaction, thanks. Great. And she paid me $20 an hour to do that. Oh, really fun. And so I was doing that. I'm feeling so useful at this point. But, I'm checking in with Marilyn, and she's, just say yes. Oh, this is wonderful. And I did not agree. And then there was a guy in our group, a couple actually, a woman by the name of Jane who was dying of cancer, and her husband Bill was working so hard to keep their insurance and making sure that people were there to take her to and from doctor's appointments and bring them food. And I had been saying, is there anything you need? Is there anything you need? And he kept saying, no. So finally one day he said, yes, actually I have 100 people scheduled. I'm trying to coordinate to cover Jane's care and bring us food and get her to appointments. Would you be willing to set up a website? And I said, yes, but I don't know how to do this at all. I can't tell him about my VCR going constantly. So I go home and I Google how to create a website. So I learned how to create this website, and so now I'm coordinating these different people's schedule and plugging in who's going to care for her during these hours and bring food on these nights, and that actually felt really good. And so during this period, I'm going through the steps again with Marilyn. I'm volunteering at the Midnight Mission, and I'm getting out of the house a little bit more and a little bit more. And it turns out that the more I am accepting that I'm always going to have pain, okay. I got to the oh, that's a bummer. My unhappiness is in direct proportion to my resistance of reality. And so I started to just accept that I was going to be in pain whether I stayed home or whether I got moving. But as I got moving, the pain lessened. And it wasn't that it was in my head. It was just I had occupied my mind with other things. I had begun to have a different experience. And so part of, as I said, my practice is when I'm asked to do something, if my calendar's open, I say yes. So at this time, one of my former bosses reaches out. I used to work at HBO Films, and he worked in production. Super busy guy, 12 to 14 hours a day. Love this guy. But hard to get in touch with and stuff. But he sent me a note on Facebook. Hey, my band's playing at the Roxy. I'm like, like that just sounds terrible. And to go to the Roxy in Hollywood, all those people, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to do anything. I'm going to miss Law and Order, And so I look at my calendar and it's open. So I say, I'll be there, and I go. And of course it's wonderful because 99% of everything is just showing up. So I show up. I see some people I used to work with. I see him. His band is great. I have the best night. So flash forward. I'm volunteering, like I said, at the Midnight Mission. And they call me in one day and they say, we'd like to interview you for a position we've created. We've been watching you and we think you'd be great for this. So I go in for this interview and I swear it starts like this. How are you at learning new technology? Technology is changing all the time. And I go, well, I just work for the census and I had to learn how to use these little handheld computers and blah, blah, blah. And they go, oh, that's fantastic. And part of your job would be managing our website. Do you have any experience with websites? And I'm like, actually, yes. So I tell them, I just put together this website. It's not a business website, but yes, I can learn. And then they said, and sometimes we get donations that we sell on eBay. Do you have any experience with eBay? And I'm like, yes, I do. And they said, this is fantastic. We would love to hire you for this position, but there's just one thing. When we look at your references, you've listed friends and you've listed former coworkers, but there's no former bosses. And I said, well, I haven't worked in a while. I had health issues, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, we need to talk to somebody that you directly reported to. And I went, my boss, who I used to have at HBO, who I just showed up for his band. I hadn't seen him in years. He works, 12 to 14 hours a day, super tough to reach him. But because I had just shown up for him, I was able to call him, and he responded right away, made the call, and I got this job. And I am not one of those people who was born, I know what I want to be. I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer. All I wanted was to find someone to love me so I'd be okay. That's all I aspired to do and be before I got here. I had no calling, no passion for really anything other than music. I love music. But so I ended up getting this job, which has been the most incredible thing. I was told, follow your passions. And so my passion has been music. I love to sing. I find it very cathartic. Not so much for my audiences, as it turns out. And so that's been a source of great pain for me. I've taken lessons. I didn't just think, I'm going to magically do it. I really worked hard. I took lessons, group lessons. I've done, like I said, all these AA shows. I've sung at weddings and funerals. It's all for fun and for free, and you get what you pay for. So I start working at the Midnight Mission, and I was exposed to all these people who have no access to art or music. And so I asked my boss at the time if I could start a music program, if I could start bringing in people to play music for our homeless guests. And so I started with people I knew. Doug Rowell, a lot of you know him. I asked, can you come down and play for our homeless guests in between lunch and dinner? He came down and played. And then I started inviting anyone I knew who played a musical instrument. And so it started out being once a month, and then we started getting some press, and then people started calling me and say, how can we do your music program? And so now we've had hundreds of these music programs over the years. But what I learned from this experience is that maybe God gives us these passions and desires not for us to shine, but for it to shine through us. And that my job is to follow those passions and desires, but to stay out of the results, because I don't know how God wants to use me. And that's, again, I pray for knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out, and then let go and see what happens. I need to follow those hints, like, oh, you're going in the right direction, come this way, But I don't know how I'm going to be used. I want to get off the work conversation, but so many of my life's lessons have been delivered at this place. A couple of years ago, my boss resigned, and so I thought, there's no way I'm going to apply for that job, for the CEO. I'm not ready for that, but some of my staff said, boss, I think you'd be really great at this. You should do it. So following the say yes to the universe, I thought, what do I have? I have nothing to lose. So I go through the process. They do a national search, 600 people apply. They get the list down to 57, then to 15, then to 6, and then to 2. Me and the guy who got it. But there was great joy in that, in getting that far and all of that, but also great heartbreak. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay. I don't know if I can stay. And it was somebody that I'd worked with for a while, and I just thought, I don't know if I can report to him. And, I had all these things. But, of course, I just do the next thing in front of me. They gave me a promotion, and I felt like it was a booby prize, but thank you very much. And they gave me my job description, and I looked at my boss, and I'm honest about stuff, and I said, this is literally a list of everything I hate to do and that I have no talent in at all. And he said, you're going to be great at this job. And I thought they were setting me up to fail. I got paranoid. I thought they were trying to get rid of me. I thought all sorts of stuff. But while I was thinking that, I was doing the job and showing up every day and, tending to my side of the street, being the best employee I could be. And it turns out that this new job has been the most amazing experience, and I'm really, really good at it. And I had no idea. But this is what I mean. It's like I've got to set aside all those old character defects, all those old ideas, and stay current in all this, so I'm present, so I'm awake for what is happening here and now. Because there's some good stuff. That's been really great. Oh, and then back to some check-in stuff, step 10-ish at my job. So in my new job, I'm working on strategic relationships. So there's this organization that's training frontline employees in homelessness, and the CEO of this organization wanted to bring in a class of people, his cohort, to come in, get in line with our homeless guests, have lunch, sit down, because they're going to be working with homeless people. They wanted to have the experience of just hanging out, getting to know some of the people in our community. So he came in for a trial run. So we went, the CEO and I, went and got in line. I look grown up. I'm not. So we get in line, and we walk with our guests. We're talking to some people. Now, I had not told the kitchen that I was going to be doing this. I had not asked for a special meal to be served. There was nothing. I was just going to be an average Joe going through the line. And so I get up to the line, and they're serving different things. And so I said, I don't want that on my plate. And I did not know, even though I've worked there a really long time, we're not allowed to do that. And I learned because someone in the kitchen said, you're not allowed to do that. And it hit me so hard, and so I was like, okay. And so I'm following my tray, but when we get to where I'm going to pick up my tray, it's not my tray. So then I try and go back to see where my tray was, and now I can't go back in line because there's all these people in line. And so I'm really hungry, and I am really in touch with what our guests are experiencing. And I can't go back in line, and now I'm being yelled at because I'm holding up the line, and I see red. So I leave the CEO, and I go into the kitchen, and I said something to the effect of, I don't know if you know who I am. And I don't do that very often. I mean, I think I've done that maybe 2 or 3 times in the time I've worked there. And the guy said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, speak kindly. Speak kindly to people coming in. I don't understand. Now, what I didn't mention is that I have profound, deep, painful issues with food shame. I don't know where they came from, but having to ask for food, having to beg for food, being hungry, all of those things, and maybe that's what attracted me to working at the Midnight Mission in Skid Row. Maybe that's part of what that is. But I have had people turn me away, like, no, you can't eat yet. And I have at work gone to my office and cried, not tears, but ugly, laying on the floor, fetal cry. I do not know what that is, but I know this about myself. And that's where the power is. I know this sensitivity about myself. But again, I wasn't prepared for that. And so I told this lovely man several things about how he could do his job better. And I'm storming in and out. Now I go out. I don't have a tray. I'm sitting with the CEO, who's now just seen this happen. And so I'm like, trying to anyway, so how is so as soon as he leaves, clearly I've seen what has just happened. So I go to the manager of the kitchen and I sit down with him and I apologize for my behavior. I apologize for the way I treated his staff. And I said, and this is an opportunity for us to learn too, because I've got 32 years sober and I'm relatively have a good spiritual program. And if it affected me this deeply and hurt me this much, what must it do to somebody who's coming in here for their only relief that they get for 1 hour a day where they feel safe? And they come in and they're being yelled at about trying to get a plate of food. They're hungry and they're dirty and they're tired, and this may be our only opportunity to reach this person and say, you're welcome here and you're okay just as you are. Come inside, sit down. So it was both. It was an opportunity for me to be really humbled, but for us to also to learn. So the head of the kitchen brought out this lovely man who I had screamed at, and I sat with him, and tears just flowed down my face as I apologized to him. And I said, I know how hard your job is. You're being yelled at all day long. And a lot of the people who work there aren't in recovery like us. They don't have the tools that we have. And, I get yelled at a lot, but I know it's not personal. I know it's their pain. And so I'm able to deal with that. But some of the people who work anyway. So this lovely fella, Mike, and I talked, and we talked about how things could be done differently and also how I could behave differently. And I apologized, and I swear he's the sweetest man. And we have such a beautiful relationship now, but it's also helps shift some things in the kitchen. And I find that sometimes God puts me in a position like this for the greater good, like it's the seemingly good and the seemingly bad. I don't know how I'm being used. And oftentimes it's pretty embarrassing for me, but often good things come as a result of it. More about praying for, let me look at the time. Okay, good. I wanted to talk a little bit about the relationship that I have today. So I got to a point in my sobriety where I had a lot of relationships over the years. I've been monogamous in all of them. Who's a good girl? But none of them seemed to be long-lasting. And I don't know if you would say that they were unsuccessful. The last relationship I had before Trenton, I was in a relationship with this man for 5 years. We were kind to each other. We were both in recovery. When we left the relationship, we didn't leave with unkind words. We left better than we came into the relationship. We had just grown apart. So I don't know if you would say that's an unsuccessful relationship. It just wasn't the one. But at that point in my sobriety, I had begun to think I may be one of those people who are incapable of being in a relationship like that. My mom and grandma were, as it turns out, and I thought I'm really just like them, and maybe that is the case. And there's a couple women in my home group who have been single their whole lives. I always dreaded becoming like them. And I thought, oh my God, that's going to be me. I'm going to be alone. I don't have any, I always say I don't have anybody required by blood or law to love me. I don't have any family. My family's been Marilyn and my AA group. My life insurance until recently was going to the Midnight Mission. Like I don't have that. And that's always been a source of great pain for me. So I'd always wanted to have a mate, somebody that is my family. But I thought maybe I'm just incapable of that. And I remember I was at a conference in January with Mari G. And she always, I may see her every few months and she'll just look at me and say, what's going on? And I sat and talked with her for a long time about that. And it was such a painful weekend and coming to that realization. But what happened as a result of that is I accepted that and just really started enjoying my life. Like, this is it. Like, adjust myself to reality. My resistance of reality is where the pain is. And so I was single and I started embracing that. I love where I live. I love my job, my new job. Who knew? And so my life is full. I sponsor women who keep me so busy, and I love music, and so I go hear music a lot, and I was taking dance lessons, always waiting for a guy to go with or a girlfriend to go with. Nobody ever wants to go, so I just started going by myself, having the best time. Shaving my legs? Not shaving my legs. Watching reruns of Grey's Anatomy, eating popcorn on the couch, just really like sinking into this life. And it was beautiful, and I was happy. And then my friend Trenton asked me to speak at his conference that April. And he was also in the same boat. And he and I started talking, and something changed. And from the gate, he's never... He's always told me exactly how he feels about me, exactly what he wants to do. I'm interested. I'd like to see you. And then we started dating. I'd like to continue to see, there was never 3-day waiting to call or whatever. There were no games. It was just absolutely really pure and simple and beautiful. And so we started on this road together, and he is somebody that I've always respected. He works a beautiful program. He's a get in the car kind of guy. If you follow him on Facebook, the guy's in his car all the time. Get in the car, get in the car. I love that, and I have not ever been with somebody who's as active as I am, and so that was always an attraction to me. And so we started seeing each other, and it's been the best relationship I've ever had. Had I known this was possible, I wouldn't have had all of those. But if I hadn't had all of those, I wouldn't know. So so I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, where I'm supposed to be there. I get that. So this last April, we went back to that conference where it all started last year, and he proposed. And that weekend I had said yes to hosting Bill C. And so Bill and Karen were there. And they have a beautiful relationship. They've been together 30 years, and they're just super crushy in love. And so they came, and the next morning after he proposed, they came to our room, and the four of us just talked. And it was just like this bubble of love and joy. And they shared experiences with us. And they're like, you probably don't want to do this, but you're welcome to get married in our yard if you want. And so Trenton and I have a great deal of love. We do not have a great deal of money. So there's no bougie wedding that's happening for us. And so we had said, let's just say yes to the universe in this situation too, And so we said, yes, we absolutely would love to get married in your yard. And so the two things that we are putting focus on are music and the food and the people. And so we are getting married in Bill and Karen's backyard in August. And in the meantime, in all the wedding planning, we've been able to have this new relationship with Bill and Karen, and we've been going to hear music, and just we have this new sweet friendship. And gosh, I just could not have seen this happening for me. I'm in my 50s, I'm 56, I'll be 57 next week, and it just keeps getting better, but it gets better as a result of continuing every day to do these things that we do, to continuously look at my side of the street and what I can do differently and the kind of person I want to be. I want to be a good employee. I can be a good employee, a good friend, a good mate, a good whatever, regardless of what you're doing on your side of the street. All my energy should be packed into who I want to be. My behavior defines who I am, and I get to be that person today. And I don't do anything alone. I've done this all with amazing support from friends and family, and and I will just finish with, and my sponsor. My sponsor is Marilyn S., and she's been my sponsor for the past 30 years. One of the levels of freedom that I've been able to experience in Alcoholics Anonymous has been having one person who knows everything about me and still loves me. And after so many years of having somebody as your sponsor, we see each other go through a lot of stuff. And I watched her walk through the suicide of her son, which came out of the blue. Nobody saw it coming. It was shocking and horrific, and I could not imagine how she'd ever breathe in and out again. And yet I watched her dive more deeply into Alcoholics Anonymous. She commitment. She started a new meeting. And then when her husband passed away, she'd been with her husband. P.S. She's been with one man her whole life. I have tried to be with one man at a time. I can't even I can't even imagine. But she'd been with her husband her whole life, and I thought, oh, this is it. When he goes, she's going to go. No. In her late 70s, early 80s, she's getting her ears pierced, getting cute dresses, putting on high heels, and traveling the world. She continues to do much more than I could ever do. And when I am in her presence, I feel that I am already the person I want to be. Sometimes I'll take something to her, and just having her, I'll look at her and I'll start saying the thing, and I'll go, I got this, And, I think all of the speakers this weekend, you guys have all touched me so deeply. In this committee, I don't think I've ever been to a more enthusiastic convention than this. This has been fantastic. And I love you, Trenton, and I'm so excited about our future. Thank you.